Welcome back. Previously we left off on creating the holes here for this honeycomb pattern back here, this air vent on the back of our model. And what we're going to do is we're going to see how to approach this and how to get this done. So how do we turn this from this square polygon to basically an area with all these little honeycomb pattern shaped holes? Well, it's actually going to be a lot easier than you might think. Okay, what I'm going to do first is create a primitive, a polygon mesh object that mimics one of these holes. Now if I look at my reference image, which is a very nice zoom in and much clearer image of the holes are six-sided and they appear to be a similar pattern to the honeycomb pattern that you would find in a beehive. Okay, so what I'm going to do, knowing that information about the hole, I'm going to go up to primitive, polygon mesh, and create myself a brand new cylinder. Let me expand here my camera view. I know I have to rotate this about 90 degrees this way. Let me also move it over here. I'm going to take the base subdivisions down to 1, the V subdivisions down to 1. Now I know it's a six-sided cylinder what I need, so I'll go to subdivisions and switch that to 6 sides. And I'm also going to change the height here. Well, the height's not really the important thing, but the radius is. This needs to be a lot smaller. So let me go over here to this view. I'm going to bring my cylinder down. Now you notice that my cylinder is oriented the wrong way, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees this way. So basically the pointy edges on the top and bottom are pointing up and down. I'm also going to take that radius and continue to tweak it down until I get something that kind of matches up with the holes in the image. So something like this looks pretty good. Yeah, that looks fine. I'm going to say I'm happy with that. Okay, so I'm going to close the PPG there. I'm going to come back to my camera view. Move this about right there, so it's going right through that polygon where it's going to punch the hole in. Okay. Now the next thing to do is to create basically a pattern of these honeycomb shaped cylinders. So how am I going to do that? Well, we have to understand the pattern that we see in the image. In the image, basically what we have is we have one of these cylinders, and then we have another cylinder here, and then here, 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 and then on the top, and basically it goes all the way around. So let's work this out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move this cylinder right about, maybe right here looks pretty good. And then I'm going to hit Control D to duplicate this, and I'm going to move it over and carefully place it where it belongs. And then I'm going to hit Control D again, and Softimage is automatically going to give this thing even spacing based on the distance that I moved that first duplicate. Now I'm not going to worry about them matching up with the image exactly perfectly, because if I do, I'll never finish work. I'm basically going to try to do this the best I can, and the image has perspective distortion anyway, so don't worry about it matching the image exactly and perfectly. Okay, that's not really. So I'm going to take all of these cylinders that I have here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Control D to duplicate them, and I'm going to move them up to about right here. Okay, and I'm going to hit Control D a few more times, something like this. And I'm going to take all of those cylinders that I created. I'm going to hit Control D to duplicate them and move them down like this. Try to just make them match up with the image as best as you can. Don't worry about it being perfect. Just try to get it pretty close. So something like that. So if I look at my camera view here, I have all of these cylinders right here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here, and I'm basically going to delete the cylinders that I don't need. Or actually, before I start deleting, let me do this. Let me offset them first. I'll offset first and then I'll delete. What do I mean by offset? Well, what I mean is that right now the pattern is not correct. What I need to do is offset some of these. So for example, you look at these down here. These are actually correct. They match up with the image pretty good because there's a hole here, here, and here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take every other pattern. So basically, say this one here. Then I'm going to skip another 2, come up here. And if you look carefully at what I'm doing, you'll eventually notice there's a pattern here, or a method to what I'm doing here. Basically selecting every other row of these cylinders. And I'm going to take these cylinders with the Move tool. I'm going to make sure I deselect the frame there. So make sure you go to your camera view, make sure you don't have anything else selected. I accidentally had that selected, so you don't want to do that. And what I'm going to do here is I'm simply going to take this and move this over like this, the way it is in the image, just to offset that, And now we get the correct pattern. If I go to my camera view, you can see this is actually the correct pattern. So one row is a little bit to the left, the next row comes a little bit to the right, the next row goes to the left, the next row goes to the right. So you end up with this nice honeycomb pattern. Now the last thing to do is basically take the cylinders we don't need, because we created a lot of extra cylinders. And I'm going to go ahead and delete them. Now make sure you select the correct cylinders and nothing else. You don't want to accidentally select and delete something that you actually wanted to keep. So I'm going to take all of these extra cylinders that I don't need. So it looks like I have all the correct ones selected. I'll just do a quick visual scan here in my camera view. I'm going to hit delete. Should end up with something like this. And they should all fit inside that polygon of the base geometry of the rear panel. So if I look at this here, I can see I have all of these cylinders here. Okay? Alright, we're almost done. Now this looks pretty good. I've got these things here and I'm almost ready to go. Next thing I'm going to do is select all of these cylinders because they're all separate objects right now. If I select them, I can see over here in my selection box I have 109 cylinders. Doesn't look like it, but there are over 100 cylinders right there in that group. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all those cylinders, hold down Alt, right click on top of them to open the special context menu. I'm going to go to merge. I'm going to take the tolerance down to 0 because I don't want these things welding together. And I'm going to hit delete to get rid of the original. So now it's one group of cylinders. See that? It's one object. I'm going to take everything and freeze modeling to clean it up. Alright, I'm going to end this video here, and in the next one we're going to see how we're going to use these cylinders to punch these holes, or this pattern of holes, into the, well, what we visualize as the metal of our object.